Alright, we're doing it. Tatsumaki versus Boros, but specifically released Boros, like the Boros after his armor comes off with the pink hair and the bluish tone to him, which means that we're not going to be talking about Meteoric Burst in this one. So a lot of the times when we have like these hypothetical matchups with like Boros or a Boros discussion of any sort, it usually ends with people saying it's going to be a wash. And hey, I'm guilty of that too. I love the guy, one of my favorite characters, and he's outrageous, as we're going to talk about in this video. But people just say that like, oh well, nobody can really compete against him except like Saitama, of course, and then guys like on the level of Blast and Orochi and maybe the full potential of Metal Knight. But that's pretty much it. But I feel like Tatsumaki's name should probably be thrown into that discussion as well. Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of people out there who also feel this way. There are plenty of people that defend Tatsumaki and say that she could probably take on guys like Boros. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at in this video. Could she compete against him, or could she even defeat him? But unfortunately, in order for me to go in depth into Tatsumaki, I'm going to have to go into webcomic spoilers. So if you don't want to know what's going to happen, I suggest you check out now. So Tatsumaki's already taken on at least two guys around the level of Boros, and then of course she fought Saitama, and we'll compare those as well. But as for Golden S, he's like fringe above Dragon, maybe could be that level, just in my opinion at least. I feel like the verdict is out on him, at least until we see his manga feats. And then Awakened Garo is consensus above Dragon. I mean, hell, some people even consider him to be disaster level god. But that's kind of showing us that she can at least compete with these guys. But also, she was weakened during both of those fights, even against Saitama. And it's mentioned multiple times that this damage to her, this weakness, is hindering her powers, almost drastically in a way. And that goes on to what one said when he commented on what would happen if Tatsumaki were to fight Golden S at full power. He says that at her best shape, she could have beaten Golden S. So does that mean for sure 10 times out of 10 she would have beat him? I don't know. It's really up for you to decide, but that is still giving us some insight into how powerful she was at her full power if she were to take on somebody of that magnitude. Now also, even still while weakened, she was able to hold Awakened Garo still for a few seconds, like long enough for a My Master to come in and land 25 kicks on him. Very impressive, you know, even her still being at the state of power that she was. But she says something very interesting. She says that, you know, after she's holding him, that if her brain was unharmed, that it would only take her 5 seconds to take out Awakened Garo. Now, is this her being braggadocious? It's really up for you to decide the validity of it, but I still think that's kind of giving us some insight because it's lining up with what one said about Golden S. So, how powerful is Golden S really? Just is really going to give us a ballpark of her going against somebody like released Boros. So, first of all, he's ultra fast. How fast is he? It's hard to say, but we can only really go off of the reactions that the S-Class gives him and what his feats are. So immediately, he does the Ultra Instinct Goku move to her, the Raging Demon from Akuma. He does that crazy thing that whenever a character is super fast and super powerful, they are able to achieve this feat. So it shocks the S-Class when he does this, so I think that's very telling. You know, Zombie Man says he's so fast our eyes cannot track him. Now, Zombie Man, obviously not one of the most powerful S-Class heroes, but I think that's narration letting us know that he is indeed pretty fast, even for like S-Class levels of speed. And then My Mask, of course, the most staunch of them all probably, says that Golden S is a monster we cannot defeat. Even if we all went full out, it's still going to be no easy task. So aside from that, we also see him able to go against Pre-Will Garo. This is like peak Pre-Will Garo, ridiculously powerful. But he's able to fight against him essentially full force. And one depicted this fight as like a typical Dragon Ball Z fight, like just lines indicating how fast they're moving and you don't really get to see it. But that's showing that, yeah, they're moving at outrageous speeds. And also by the end of the fight, Garo is Awakened Garo, indicating that Golden S pushed him to the point of awakening. So that's showing that he's that powerful. But of course, he did die to Awakened Garo, so he's not quite on that level. So this means that Tatsumaki can defeat somebody like Golden S, which I think is telling us that she could go against released Boros. Now, Golden S isn't as strong as him in my opinion, but given the hype and the feats that Golden S has, at least just in the webcomic, I think he's close to that level. like just a weaker version, more or less, of released Boros. So that means that her overall strength, durability, speed, reflexes are able to compete with him. And let's go into her reflexes. So if we go back to that Raging Demon Ultra Instinct type technique that Golden S did to her, afterwards, she's still standing. Like, she's not dead after taking that massive attack. Golden S says, "Pretty astounding, you're still alive. Did you erect a barrier to save yourself?" So that means in the blink of an eye, even faster than that, before he was able to hit her with the Raging Demon technique, she was able to put up a barrier. So that's showing us that her reflexes and her barrier are top notch. And I feel that these are probably strong enough to at least save her from taking the full force of Boros' punches. Now, she can take a punch and she can take some damage, because we've seen, she took a punch to the face from Pure Ugly and that didn't put her down for good. And she was thrown like from the sky directly into the ground by Psychos. And then after that, she was like thrown around like into rocks and stuff by Psychos. And then after that, she was down for a few chapters, like didn't get up or anything. So I don't think she'd be able to take a few punches from Boros like straight on without her barrier. But how strong is her barrier? So we've seen that it's strong enough to like block buildings from falling on her. Like the barrier can even become so big it like reaches city blocks level. And it's able to withstand the force of the full power light sphere from Homeless Emperor. That's pretty impressive. Like, didn't really do anything to her. And Homeless Emperor himself says they are full power. So does this mean that she could withstand like an energy blast from Boros? Because, that's something that he could do in this form. And I think maybe. I mean, I think they're stronger than Homeless Emperor's full power, but by how much, it's really hard to say. I mean, we do get a glimpse at the area of damage that this thing is capable of doing. If, like, we're comparing the top of the ship to, like, the radius of the city, it's pretty devastating. But just given the potential of a full-power Tatsumaki and how Homeless Emperor's Blast didn't really do anything to it, I think she could at least take one of those. So she can survive at least one of those. But how fast is she overall? Because we saw Boros is ridiculously fast. So there's no real way to tell for sure how fast Boros is in its released form. But I could just say, just in my opinion, that I feel that he's at least as fast as Flashy Flash. Given the way that he's competing with Saitama in their fight, and if we also compare it to the fight between, or the sparring match, between Saitama and Flashy Flash in Chapter 113 of the webcomic, it's pretty comparable, in my opinion. Like, they're doing similar stuff, and I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that Flashy Flash is at least close to what Boros was doing, at least from a speed perspective. So can Tatsumaki deal with this speed? Well, from a mobility standpoint, probably not. That doesn't mean she's slow. I mean, we saw how fast she could fly from like city to city or just point to point when she was trying to save Fubuki from Super S and when she was going after the hot dog monster. But from a reflex stance, which I think is the most important part here, I think she can. I mean, if she can block the Raging Demon before it's like hitting her full force, and that was in her weakened state, I think at her full power, she probably could block Boros' attacks, or at least compete with it from a reflex stance. Also, she's just going to have her barrier erect at all times, so that's to her advantage, especially against somebody like Boros, who is ultra aggressive, like the most aggressive I think we have ever seen. So, can Tatsumaki manipulate Boros? Can she use her Esper powers on him? Well, she can like throw stuff at him for sure, but we saw how that went against guys like Awakened Garo. It doesn't really matter. So she's gonna have to like manipulate his body the way that she was holding Awakened Garo still, the way that she was trying to break Golden S's neck. So apparently there is a technique where you disturb the opponent's surrounding psychic signal, and if you use it on the opponent's body, you can end things in an instant, such as like breaking their neck or doing something like that. But even non-psychics have energy flowing throughout their body, and scholars call it things like chi or aura. And we've seen that Boros has like the most outrageous display of this we have ever seen outside of Saitama, of course. I mean, the energy is just flowing out of his body. I mean, that's what he's all about. He just has this crazy internal energy to him. Now, that could be his chi, that could be his aura, but regardless, he does have something like it. And then the strength of will is directly connected to psychic resistance. So we see that when Tatsumaki tries to use this on Saitama, it kind of just vibrates him slightly, and he says that his muscles are twitching on their own. So yeah, that's Saitama, but she's at least able to lift him with this ability, which is ultra impressive, because it is Saitama after all. And he makes a clear distinction between it being wind pressure and like him being psychically lifted. So then she also compares this to when she tried to use it on Golden S at Awakened Garo. Now, of course, she was weakened during those times, so at her full strength, her being able to defeat Golden S and her claim of taking care of Awakened Garo in 5 seconds, I think that she could probably use this on released Boros. I mean, yes, he probably does have insane strength of will. Probably. Which ties to his psychic resistance. But given her potential, and given what we've seen of him, I don't feel like there's that big of a discrepancy between them. I do think that she could probably mess up Boros for a little bit with this stuff. I mean, let's just look at some of her feats of strength. Like, she pulls the Monster Association out of the ground. Murata claims that she's strong enough to lift Z City. That could be hyperbole, but still it's something. She stops those bullets coming down from Boros' ship. She swats away the evil natural waters water jets. She can withstand Giro's 300 times gravity attack. So I think she could probably manipulate Boros and do some damage to him. I mean, why not? Do you think that like he's just so unfathomably powerful that not even Tatsumaki, given her strength feats, given that she could defeat Golden S at her full power, couldn't do anything to him from this stance? Like, I do think she could amount this offense to him, but it really depends on how effective it would be. Like, could she snap his neck? Maybe, maybe not. Could she throw him around? I think very likely. Could she, like, hurl him into something? For sure. Could she damage him that way? Remains to be seen. But it really all depends on if she can compete with his speed and if he can break her barrier. So can his physical punches do it? Probably. I mean, we saw how powerful they were. He knocks Saitama through like multiple layers of the ship, punches him through everything. I mean, we don't really get to see too clearly how physically strong he is, not going into meteoric burst stuff, but just him leveling Saitama is pretty indicative of what his crazy strength is, which is probably stronger than like Darkshine, just taking a guess. So all in all, I feel like Tatsumaki versus Boros from a released state is pretty competitive, like way more competitive than what you think it would be. Who would win? If I had to put my money on it, I would put it on Boros, because he just seems like he would be able to overcome her in more ways that she can overcome him. But I really wouldn't be surprised if Tatsumaki was able to like take him out with like psychic manipulation, or could gas him out from taking all of his best shots and he wasn't able to break her barrier or something like that. I feel like it's like 60-40 in Boros' favor at this point, but it's really up for you to decide. So let me know what you think about this matchup. Do you think Tatsumaki could take released Boros? And if you liked it, guys, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It gives you access to a weekly Q&A. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.